the rain had just stopped, leaving the Texas air thick with the scent of wet earth and mesquite. The sun dipped low behind the ridge, casting long golden shadows across the Turner Ranch. Eli stood on the porch, his weathered hands resting on the rail, staring through the open window where his wife's old piano sat gathering dust. He hadn't heard its sound in 2 years, not since fever had taken Clara from him. Once, every evening, she'd fill the house with hymns that made even the wind seem to listen. Now there was only silence, the kind that seemed to settle in a man's bones. Life had slowed to the rhythm of chores and loneliness until that afternoon when the sheriff's wagon rolled up the dirt path. "She can't speak," the sheriff said, his voice low, as he helped a small figure down from the wagon. "Found her by the riverbank. No one knows where she came from. Thought maybe you'd keep her till the orphan train passes next month." Eli's brow furrowed beneath his hat brim. He hadn't asked for company, especially not the kind that came with a mystery. The child, small, mud-streaked eyes like chipped amber, stood silent, her gaze fixed on the porch boards. She looked like a shadow of herself, half-starved and frightened. Eli sighed, glancing toward the horizon where the clouds broke like torn cloth. "All right," he murmured. "Just for a while." The first days were quiet. She followed Eli around like a ghost, small boots scuffing softly behind him as he went about his chores. He tried to talk to her, slow, patient words about horses, fences, rain, but she never answered. She didn't make a sound. Not even when the rooster startled her or when she burned her hand by the stove. She'd just draw her fingers back, eyes wide, lips trembling, but no sound ever came. The townsfolk said she was cursed, that maybe she'd seen something so terrible her voice had been taken by fear. Eli didn't believe in curses, but he did believe in pain. He'd lost enough to know that silence was its own kind of wound. Over time, the ranch began to feel different. Where silence had once been emptiness, now it became something softer, a quiet understanding. She began helping without being asked, carrying kindling, brushing down the horses, mending little things in her own way. When Eli returned from the fields one evening, he found her sitting near the piano, tracing her finger over the faded ivory keys. His breath caught in his throat. That piano had been the heart of the house once. Clara's laughter had poured out of it like sunlight. Now, seeing the child there, it felt like a memory trying to breathe again. "You like that old thing?" Eli asked gently. She didn't nod or look up, but her small hand hovered over the keys, trembling as if afraid to wake ghosts. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. The image of her sitting at the piano wouldn't leave him. He tossed and turned until finally, near midnight, he got up, lit a lantern, and walked to the parlor. The air was still. The moonlight spilled through the window across the piano lid. And she was there again, sitting before it, barefoot, silent as a prayer. "You can't sleep either, huh?" Eli whispered. She turned her face toward him, her eyes reflecting the lamplight like glass. He sat down beside her, his heart thudding against memories he'd tried to bury. "My wife used to play this," he said softly. Said every key had a story in it. He lifted the lid, the hinges groaning from disuse, and pressed a single note. The sound wavered, dusty and tired, but it lingered in the air like an echo from the past. He smiled sadly. "She used to play this one," he said, and began pressing the keys with the same slow rhythm he remembered. A lullaby Clara had written for their unborn child who never came. The melody was simple but deep, each note sinking into the quiet room like drops of rain on dry soil. Eli's voice cracked as he hummed along, the memories clawing at him, but still he played. When the final note faded, there was only the crackle of the lantern. Eli exhaled shakily and closed the lid. He turned to look at her, and froze. Tears streamed silently down her face, glinting in the lantern light. Her lips trembled, parting as if to form a sound. Nothing came, only a gasp, but to Eli, it was like thunder after drought. "It's all right," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "You don't have to." But she shook her head, small fingers clutching his sleeve, desperate. Then she pointed at the keys. Eli hesitated. "You want me to play again?" She nodded, the first response he'd seen. So he did. The melody filled the room once more, rough but tender. Her chest heaved, breath-breaking, and then, so faintly he thought he imagined it, came a sound, the ghost of a word. Not clear, not even formed, but real. Her voice. Eli's hands stilled. He turned slowly, and she looked up. Eyes wide with wonder, as if hearing herself for the first time. A single syllable slipped out, cracked but alive, "Ma." She gasped again, her hand flying to her mouth. Eli's throat tightened. "You can speak," he breathed. The girl's shoulders shook as she cried silently. The piano's echo wrapping around them both. Eli reached for her hand. "No one's cursed here," he said softly. "Not anymore." Outside. The wind shifted through the fields, carrying the faintest echo of song through the valley. From that night on, the ranch was no longer silent. Each evening, the piano sang again, sometimes haltingly, sometimes with joy, and so did she. The days after that night felt lighter. As if the whole ranch had taken a deep breath for the first time in years. She followed Eli everywhere now. Her silence replaced by faint hums and soft sounds that stumbled like newborn steps. The piano became their bridge. Each evening she'd sit beside him, watching his rough hands glide over the keys, her small fingers trying to mimic the movement. Sometimes she'd manage a single word, play, again, or song. Each one was a victory, a spark of hope lighting the emptiness that once filled the house. Eli began to smile again, not because the pain was gone, but because the music made it bearable. Neighbors who once pitted him stopped by, curious to hear the child who'd found her voice through an old piano. They said it was a miracle, but Eli only shook his head. It wasn't a miracle, it was love finding a way to speak again. The melody Clara once played now belonged to another heart, breathing new life into his broken home. One evening, she pressed a small drawing into his hand, a picture of the piano, a man, and a little girl holding hands. Beneath it, in shaky letters, she'd written a single word, family. Eli felt his eyes sting. The world had taken his wife, but in its strange mercy, it had given him a reason to keep her song alive. And so the piano played on, not just music, but healing, a reminder that even silence can be taught to sing again.